Finding calmness in the storms of life can be quite difficult. I grew up in Texas, right in the middle of a tornado alley. Sirens blare, warning people a storm is coming and advising them to seek shelter. Sometimes storms of life come with warning bells. The winds of anger and bitterness blow against you. Harsh words are spoken, false accusations are made, and you're left with wounds that injure your soul. Other times, the storms come unexpectedly. Such was the case when Jesus told the disciples to get in the boat and cross over to the other side of the sea. They did exactly what he told them to do, and yet the waves crashed in a storm that threatened their lives. Today, I want to encourage you, as you may be in the center of God's will for your life, wondering why the storms rage. Stay tuned for more on how to anchor your soul. Find the full transcript for this episode, plus resources for women at estrangement, turning pain into peace, at beckykolb.com/37. You're listening to Estrangement, Turning Pain into Peace, a podcast and free resource for women with estranged relationships, created by me, host and coach Becky Kolb. My superpower is to help you turn your emotional pain into peace by conquering guilt and shame, rebuilding self-confidence, and developing healthy boundaries. I've dealt with estranged relationships most of my life and know both the pain and the peace. Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss a thing. Now, let's dive into today's episode. You are not alone in the storms that come and go in your life. Everyone experiences them. Growing up in Texas, we had what was known as tornado season. Usually it began in the spring and lasted a couple of months. Lately, nothing is normal with weather patterns, and they seem to come throughout the year. Isn't that how it is in life? You learn to read the barometer in relationships and anticipate potential issues. Planning and preparation may hold the storm at bay. And sometimes you've just had enough and blow up, saying things you later regret. You've created the storm you hoped to avoid. I've been there, and I want to say, don't beat yourself up. Learn from the mistakes you make and grow from there. Don't get caught up in the guilt and shame that linger, like the debris strewn all over once the storm has passed. Pick up the pieces, make amends where needed, and then move on. Let's talk about unexpected storms. Estrangement is a storm all by itself. The barometric pressure rises and falls when two hurt souls get together. Lingering hurt from previous conversations stirs up winds of anger and bitterness. You've worked through some of these emotions, and for the moment, life is calm. That's where I was when I discovered the waves were crashing over me, threatening to capsize the boat called life. And the only way I knew it was happening was the restlessness inside of me, the fear that arose, sharpness in my voice, anger that lay beneath the surface. Where was all this coming from? As I talked about it with a trusted friend, it was brought to my attention that I was dealing with grief and loss. Loss when my husband and business partner retired and I continued to work. Loss of identity and grieving what we once had when the business we started was sold. Sadness seeing my husband's health decline. Fear of the unknown as I moved from part-time work to retirement. Grief with family drama and lost relationships. All of this surrounded my boat of life, and I hadn't seen the storms coming until they began to crash into me and rock my world. I needed to find calmness in these storms. So how do you find it? The first step in finding calmness in the storms of life is to recognize what's around you. What are you dealing with? Write it down. Are you amid a job change? How's your marriage? Do you have support or conflict? Are you taking care of an aging parent? What's going on in your life? Then take stock of your emotional state. What's going on there? For some, it's hard to name emotions. You feel so overwhelmed you don't even know what they are. Get alone and pray. Ask God to show you. It was easy for me to name the bitterness and anger in estranged relationships. Taking care of your emotional needs in the storms of life is essential. You'll be no good to anyone else if you don't take care of you. In the story of Jesus coming to the disciples at 3 a.m. in the morning, it's interesting to see that they were all awake and fearful of the storm that raged around them. Jesus wasn't far behind. He had stayed back to pray, and he was now walking through the storm to the disciples. When they saw him, they were afraid, and Peter doubted him. He asked for Jesus to allow him to walk on water to him, and Jesus said one word, "Come." Jesus didn't rebuke him for doubting. Peter climbed out of the boat, which in my mind took a lot of courage. The sea was still rough, and the storm had not yet subsided, and yet Peter attempted what no one else had done, and all went well, until Peter took his eyes off Jesus and placed his focus on the stormy sea. Haven't we all done that? I can imagine that I would be saying, "What in the world have I done? Why would I leave the boat to prove a point? I'm going to die." Peter may have been thinking this as he began to sink. He cried out for Jesus to save him, and Jesus did. The safest place for our soul in the storms of life is anchored to Jesus, the one who calms the storm, the one who can save us from our doubts and fears. Do you need calmness in your storm? Will you reach out to Jesus and let him save you from the crashing waves? Will you anchor your soul to him and trust him to calm the storms? When Jesus and Peter climbed back into the boat, Jesus rebuked the wind and the storm abated. Just seconds ago, the disciples thought they would capsize, and now, with Jesus in the boat, the sea is calm. Yes, he has that kind of power. But we need to cry out for it. "Lord, save me." When I recognized the storms of life that surrounded me, I did cry out. And he led me to someone that could help me make sense of it all. One that could help me identify the emotions and the reasons behind them. Discovering these things helped calm my storm. I couldn't see clearly what was causing the waves to swirl and the winds to toss my emotions around haphazardly. I could identify my emotions, challenge my beliefs, and learn my triggers. Like the disciples in the boat, I felt I was doing what God had asked me to do, and yet the storms of life came. Storms are just part of life. Anchor your soul to Jesus. Ask him to help you through the storms until he calms the sea. Be open to his leading if you need to talk with someone more deeply about your issues. I'm going to be starting a series on principles that I have learned through estranged relationships in my life. So stay tuned for that this summer. Until next time, learn to recognize the weather patterns in your life. Avoid obvious storms. And when they do come, know that Jesus has his hand extended and is just ready for you to reach out. Thanks for listening to Estrangement, Turning Pain into Peace. Estrangement is a difficult topic for many, and I applaud you for tuning in. Don't forget to check out earlier episodes too, and please share this with others who may need to hear. And if you're getting value, I would appreciate a short review.